You've been manifesting every single second of today, not with affirmations, not with vision boards, not with any technique you sat down and deliberately performed. You've been doing it with something so fundamental, so basic, that you don't even notice it's happening. And here's the problem. You've been doing it in the wrong direction. For most of you watching this, the reason your manifestation practice isn't working has nothing to do with whether you're visualizing correctly, whether your affirmations are worded right, or whether you're doing sats properly before bed. The reason it's not working is something Neville Goddard identified decades ago, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It changes everything. So let's get into it. Most people treat manifestation like it's a task, like it's something you add to your to-do list between checking emails and going to the gym. You sit down, you do your 10 minutes of living in the end, you try to feel it real, and then you get up and go about your day. And here's what happens during that day. You check your bank account and feel that knot in your stomach. You scroll through social media and compare yourself to someone who seems to have what you want. You replay that conversation with your boss where they passed you over, and you feel that familiar frustration rise up. You mentally rehearse tomorrow's problems before they even happen, and then tomorrow night, you sit down again for your 10 minutes of visualization and wonder why nothing's changing. I know this cycle because I've lived it, and because almost everyone who comes to this work goes through it. And I want to validate something right now. It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you lack discipline. It's not that you don't believe hard enough. The issue is actually much more specific than that, and once Neville's framework clicks, you'll see exactly why this pattern exists and what to do about it. Here's the real diagnosis. In Feeling is the Secret, Neville laid out something that most people read right past. He said the subconscious mind accepts what the conscious mind feels to be true. Not what it says, not what it hopes, not what it repeats like a mantra. What it feels to be true. Meaning what it accepts with that quiet sense of naturalness, that inner knowing. And here's the critical part most people miss. Your subconscious isn't listening during your 10-minute session and then taking a break for the other 23 hours and 50 minutes. It's always on. It's always receiving. Which means whatever your attention dwells on throughout the entire day, whatever feels natural and normal and assumed to you, that is the instruction set your subconscious is running on. So you do 10 minutes of I am wealthy, and then spend 8 hours assuming you're not. You do 10 minutes of I am loved, and then spend the afternoon attending to every piece of evidence that you're alone, and then you wonder why the 10 minutes isn't winning. It was never going to win. It's outnumbered. The issue was never your technique. The issue is that you have an attention problem, and Neville understood this long before anyone was talking about neuroplasticity or dopamine loops or attention economics. He saw it clearly. Your attention is not a minor detail in the manifestation process. It is the entire process. So, let me show you what Neville actually meant by this, because this is where it gets fascinating. Let me draw this out. Imagine a circle in the center of this board. That's you. That's awareness. That's what Neville called I am. The pure consciousness that you are before you attach any label to it. Now, radiating out from this circle are arrows, and each arrow points toward something different. One points toward your bills. One points toward an argument you had with your partner. One points toward your dream career. One points toward a health worry. One toward the relationship you desire. Each of these arrows represents a direction of attention. And here's what Neville taught in The Power of Awareness that changes everything. He said awareness is not a passive witness. It is the cause of what it observes. Let me say that again because it's that important. Your awareness does not passively observe reality. It actively creates what it observes. Whatever you direct your attention toward, you are literally giving your creative power to. You are animating it. You are selecting it and sustaining it and breathing life into it. Most people think of attention like a flashlight. You shine it on something that's already there, and you see it. Neville is saying something radically different. He's saying your attention is more like a projector. Whatever it's aimed at, that's what appears on the screen. Shift the projector, and the image changes. Not eventually. Not after the universe processes your request. The image changes because the projector moved. Think about what happened this morning. The very first moment you woke up before you even opened your eyes. Where did your mind go? What was the first thing your attention landed on? Was it the problem you went to sleep worrying about? Was it the thing you're afraid of? Was it the state of lacking something? That wasn't random. That habitual direction of attention is the assumption your subconscious has been running on. And it's been running on it not because life is bad, but because your attention has been habitually directed toward the unwanted state. Neville would say you're not worried because things are bad. Things appear bad because your attention is habitually directed toward worry. The causation runs in the opposite direction from what we've been taught, and that's either terrifying or liberating depending on how you look at it. I find it liberating because it means the lever for change isn't out there somewhere. It's right here. It's the direction of your own awareness. Now, let me show you the second piece of this, because this is where Neville's framework goes from interesting to genuinely powerful. Let me draw something else here. Imagine a long hallway with doors on either side. Each door leads to a room, and each room represents what Neville called a state. Now, a state is one of his most important and least understood concepts, so let me be precise about what he meant. A state is not an emotion. It's not a mood. It's not a temporary feeling. Neville described it as a complete attitude of mind, a total constellation of beliefs, assumptions, and feelings that together form an entire way of experiencing reality. So the state of the wealthy person isn't just feeling happy about money. It's the whole package. The naturalness of abundance, the quiet assumption that there's always enough, the absence of anxiety around finances, the way you think about opportunities, the way you relate to risk. It's an identity structure. It's a complete world. And here's the key. You don't create these states. They already exist. Every possible configuration of consciousness, every possible version of your experience already exists as a state you can occupy. Neville described it like rooms in an infinite house. You don't need to build the room of the loved person. That room exists. You don't need to construct the room of the successful entrepreneur. It's already there. You just need to walk into it. And your attention, this is the critical piece. Your attention is how you walk through the door. Look at this diagram. Here's a stick figure. That's you, standing in one room. Let's call it the state of the struggling person. Everything in that room matches that state. The bills, the worry, the evidence of not having enough. Now here's another room right next to it. The state of the person who has already made it. Different assumptions in that room. Different feelings. Different relationship to reality. The door between them, the thing that lets you move from one room to the other, is your attention. Whatever state you give sustained, natural attention to, as though it's already your reality, you enter. And here's the part that really gets people. The part from The Power of Awareness that I think is one of the most powerful ideas Neville ever articulated. He said an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Read that again in your mind. An assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. That means you don't need the evidence before you shift. You don't need proof that you're wealthy before you occupy the state of wealth. You don't need someone to love you before you occupy the state of being loved. You assume it first, you give it your sustained attention, and the outer world reorganizes to match. The assumption comes first. The evidence follows, always in that order. Now, I want to draw an important distinction here because people hear this and immediately think, oh, so it's fake it till you make it. No, it's not. Faking it means you're standing in one room pretending you're in another. You're in the state of the broke person putting on a performance of wealth. That doesn't work because your actual attention, your actual feeling, hasn't moved. You're visiting the desired state, not living in it. What Neville is describing is something different. It's an actual shift in where your awareness rests. And the indicator, the way you know the shift has actually happened, is the feeling of naturalness. Which brings me to the third piece of this, and honestly, this might be the most practically important thing I'll say in this entire video. If this is clicking for you right now, if you're starting to see that attention isn't just a minor detail, but is actually the entire mechanism behind everything Neville taught, then subscribe because this is what we do here. We go deep into the actual architecture of these principles, not surface level tips, not just believe harder, the real mechanics of how consciousness shapes reality. This is where we do that work. All right, so here's the question everyone hits when they try to apply this. How do I know it's actually working? How do I know my attention has really shifted versus me just pretending or hoping or lying to myself? This is where Neville's distinction between emotion and feeling becomes absolutely critical. And most people in the manifestation space completely blur these two things together. In Feeling is the Secret, Neville made a very specific distinction. Emotion is the surface level reaction. Excitement, hype, desperation, even that giddy feeling you get when you first start visualizing something you want. Feeling, the way Neville used the word, is something much deeper and much quieter. It's the sense of naturalness. It's the of course quality. It's the same inner knowing you have about things you've never questioned. Let me give you a test that will make this click instantly. Think of your name right now. Just say it internally. Notice what happens. There's no effort. There's no need to convince yourself. You don't need an affirmation. You don't need to visualize evidence. You don't need to repeat it 500 times. You just know it. It's the most natural thing in the world. That is the feeling Neville is pointing to. That quiet, complete, unquestioned acceptance. Now think of something you want but don't currently have. Notice what happens in your body, in your mind. Feel the difference. There's a gap. There's an efforting, a reaching, a hoping, maybe a little tension, maybe a voice that says, but is this really going to work? That gap between the naturalness of your own name and the straining toward the thing you want. That gap is the distance between the state you're in and the state you want to occupy. And the goal of everything Neville taught is not to generate more emotion, not to get more excited, not to visualize more vividly. The goal is to hold your attention on the desired state until that sense of naturalness appears, until thinking from the wish fulfilled feels as ordinary, as unremarkable, as effortless as thinking of your own name. This is why Neville's methods actually work when they're done correctly. It's not about repetition. It's not about willpower. The subconscious mind, which Neville equated with the creative power that actually shapes your outer experience, isn't impressed by how many times you repeat something. It's impressed by the quality of acceptance. When your attention rests on an idea without resistance, when the feeling of naturalness accompanies it, the subconscious accepts it as real and begins to externalize it. That's the mechanism, not magic, not wishful thinking. A very specific relationship between attention, feeling, and subconscious impression. So let me give you something concrete you can do tonight. I call it the attention audit, and it's got 3 parts. Part 1, the evening audit. Tonight, 5 minutes before bed, sit quietly and review your day. But don't review what happened. Review where your attention lived. What did you dwell on? What assumptions were you marinating in without even realizing it? Were you spending most of your mental energy attending to the state of having what you want or attending to the state of not having it? Be honest. No judgment. You're not grading yourself. You're mapping the territory. You're figuring out where your creative power has actually been flowing all day. Most people have never done this. They've never actually tracked the habitual direction of their own attention. And the first time you do it, it can be genuinely shocking. You realize, oh, I've been feeding the state I'm trying to leave all day without knowing it. Part two, the redirection. This happens in the drowsy state before sleep, which is what Neville called SATS, state akin to sleep. That liminal zone between waking and sleeping, where the conscious mind relaxes and the subconscious becomes directly impressionable. Choose one thing, not 10, not your entire dream life. One desired reality. Construct a brief scene that implies it's already done, not the process of getting it, the result. A friend shaking your hand and saying congratulations, looking at your bank balance and seeing the number, feeling the ring on your finger. And then, this is the key, don't try to visualize it with effort. Don't strain. Simply give it your attention. Let your awareness rest on the scene the way it rests on a movie you're completely absorbed in. You're not forcing anything. You're just gently placing your attention there and feeling for the naturalness. So, if it feels like straining, you're trying too hard. Let it become as ordinary and unremarkable as remembering what you had for lunch today. When that naturalness comes, even for a moment, that's the subconscious receiving the impression. That's the shift happening. Part 3. The daytime practice. This is where it actually takes root. Throughout tomorrow, notice when your attention drifts back toward the old state. The worry comes back. The doubt surfaces. You see evidence of the current unwanted reality and your attention snaps to it. When that happens, don't fight it. Don't get frustrated with yourself. Just gently redirect. The same way you bring your eyes back to a book you're reading when your mind wanders. No drama, no self-criticism, just a calm, quiet return to the assumed state. Think of it like training a muscle, not through force, but through gentle, repeated redirection. Over days, this becomes your new habitual direction of attention. The desired state starts to feel less like something you're trying to get to and more like something you're already in. And that's when Neville's core principle activates in its full power. The assumption persisted in hardens into fact. Here's what I want you to walk away with. You've probably been thinking about manifestation as something you do. A technique, a ritual, a practice you perform and then wait for results. Neville Goddard was saying something much more radical than that. He was saying your attention is the creative act. It's not a tool you use to manifest. It is the manifestation itself. Every single moment that you attend to something, an assumption, a fear, a hope, a desired state, you are literally selecting which room of reality you're standing in. You are walking through a door, and the outer world, every single time, reorganizes itself to match the room you've entered. The shift doesn't happen in some future moment when the universe decides to deliver your order. The shift happens the instant your attention moves, and your feeling of naturalness changes. The outer world is always catching up to the inner world. Always. That's not a belief. In Neville's framework, that's the fundamental architecture of how consciousness and reality relate to each other. So tonight, don't do a manifestation technique. Instead, just try one thing. Notice where your attention goes. Map it. See it clearly. And then gently, with no force and no desperation, move it. Move it toward the version of reality you would choose if you truly understood that your attention is the only thing that has ever been building your experience. Because according to Neville Goddard, it is. It always has been. And the moment you really grasp that, you stop being someone who practices manifestation and you become someone who understands that you've never been doing anything else.